Hi there, I am Steve from my Aspie world and welcome to the channel. In fact, welcome to my world. I'm a OP boy. Know that they ride or die. Okay, so a little bit about myself. My name is Stephen, as I said, and I'm about just over halfway into my diagnosis journey. I decided to go and get screened and now, as I said, on my route towards a diagnosis. After feeling, well, somewhat different to other people throughout the course of my life, from a child all the way up to adulthood, and also identifying with a lot of the autistic traits. So today's video is about the AQ50 test. Now I'm going to keep on looking down here because there's a lot to read off and I'm not Rain Man. So yeah, so the AQ50 test. So if you or someone that you know is age 16 plus and identifies with a lot of autistic traits, then they may be on the autistic spectrum. Now, if they want to go on the route of a diagnosis or even not, then you can take the AQ50 test online, or if you go to your doctors seeking a diagnosis or to inspect it further, then they will normally direct you, I presume, towards the AQ50 screening test first. Now, the test is designed to be done independently and to be done independently by those of average or above intelligence. Now, the AQ50 test stands for the Autism Spectrum Quotient Test. Now, it's a screening tool that consists and comprises of 50, that's 10, 50, is that 50? Yeah, 50 statements. Now, each statement you can choose either agree or disagree. And whether you agree or disagree, you can also choose slightly disagree or agree, or definitely agree or disagree. Now, a little bit of history about this, about the person who created the test. I think that's always maybe it's just the autistic part of me coming out. But the test itself was actually developed in 2001 by Sir Simon Baron Cohen. Now, who is the British clinical psychologist and professor of developmental psychopathology at the University of Cambridge. Yeah, he's also the director of the university's Autism Research Centre. So he is qualified, I presume, yeah? So interestingly, Sir Simon Baron Cohen is actually the cousin, I believe, let me know in the comments down below, the cousin of Sacha Baron Cohen, who plays Ali G and Borat as well. So the test itself gives you a score between 0 and 50 points. And the higher the score is supposed to indicate the more level or the higher level of autistic traits that you have. Now, it is important to remember that it is a screening tool and it should be treated as such for information gathering, whether it's for yourself or for a healthcare professional. It is in no way a diagnostic tool to be diagnosed with autism, and you shouldn't treat it as such, but to give you more of an idea. Now, the test itself is quite a decent test, but it's not perfect by any means, and as some of the questions can be interpreted in different ways and also quite stereotypical as well. Now, it is important to remember that the test, if you did it multiple times, and depending on the day that you do it and how you're feeling, it could give you slightly different results. But however, overall, it should give you a good indication. And you should always answer the questions not on how you feel in that particular moment or of a recent event, but as much as your life as a whole, if possible. So try and generalize the answer to how you feel in general. So the threshold score of the test is 26 or greater, and this would indicate that you may be autistic. Okay, so statistics show that 80% of people who were already diagnosed with Asperger's scored 32 or more. So interestingly, according to my GP at least, for a referral to be made, a male had to score 32 or more and a female had to score 30 or more. Now, obviously, this will depend on your GP, your locality and where you live, and it's all to do with the funding, etc. So there's a lot to it, but if you can score 32 or more as a male or 30 or more as a female, according to what my GP told me, then you have got more of a chance of being pushed towards having being referred rather for a diagnosis. Now, the test itself, as I said earlier, is not perfect by any means, but it is a good indication test and a good screening tool overall. Okay, so as I said before, the test is not perfect by any means, and there is some questions that are quite stereotypical, but we will go through those questions together, and I'll do so many questions at the end of this intro, and in part 2 in the next video we'll continue those and you can see what score I've got. I know my last time I did do this test I got, I think it was either 34 or 36 anyway. Okay, so finally a top tip is that if you just want to go through the questionnaire, the screening tool, you know, just really quickly to get a rough idea, that's absolutely fine, but you don't have to worry about the slightly or the definitely agree or disagree. Because as long as you choose the answer, let's say the question, one of the questions was, I enjoy social chit chat. I think that is one of the questions, but I don't know which number it is. But let's say that's one of the questions. Now, the typical response from an autistic person would be, not everybody, but would be, in their eyes, would be, I disagree. I don't enjoy social chit chat. I find it quite difficult, maybe. So whether you pick slightly disagree or definitely disagree, like I really disagree with it, you still get the same point. It makes no difference at all. But if a healthcare professional is asking you to fill this in, then it's important that you fill it out as fully as possible, because then that will give a bigger and wider picture going towards your diagnosis. Okay, so let's crack on with the test. But before we do, please give this video a big thumbs up if you're enjoying the content so far, and also don't forget to comment down below any questions or any experiences that you want to share as regards the AQ50 test, and don't forget to subscribe and press that notification bell to be alerted of other up and coming videos. Okay, so let's crack on to question number 1. Okay, so question number 1 is, I prefer to do things with others rather than on my own. I think that's quite self-explanatory. So for me, I'm going to choose for that slightly disagree. I do enjoy doing things with other people, some things, but there's a lot of things especially like my own interests, I like to do on my own. So yeah, so for that one, I'm going to select slightly disagree. Okay, so question number 2 is, I prefer to do things the same way over and over again. It depends what this actually means, because there's some things that I do like to do over and over again, the same kind of way. Like I like to do things the same way, my little thing going to work or maybe coming back. Not always, but mostly the same. There's some things that I don't either. So again, just because you're autistic doesn't mean to say you have to do things the same way over and over again. So for this, I'm going to say I slightly agree, because I do have a way that I like to do things on some occasions. So I think I'm going to select slightly agree to that one. Okay, so question number 3 is, if I try to imagine something, I find it very easy to create a picture in my mind. I've got a good imagination in that sense. If I wanted to, let's say I was reading a book or someone was talking to me, I could recreate that into my head, I feel. So for that one, I am going to select definitely agree. Okay, so question number 4 is, I frequently get so strongly absorbed in one thing that I lose sight of other things. I think they call this hyper-focusing. And I'm going to put, it's kind of between slightly and definitely agree for me. If I'm doing something that I'm really interested in that moment in time, then other things can go by the way. You know, I may not go and do something that I need to do, you know, and I might get in trouble with the other half. You know, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. But yeah, for me, I can get quite strongly absorbed into things. So I'm going to put definitely agree. Like I said, it doesn't matter about the scoring, but I think for me, I'm going to go more towards definitely agree than slightly agree. Okay, so question number 5 is, I often notice small sounds when others do not. For this, I'm going to click definitely agree, because for me, I do notice small sounds like clicking and ticking. Not all the time, but quite a lot of the time as well, especially when I'm trying to study or trying to do something. If I'm driving my car, if there's something wrong with the engine, which has been done on a good handful of occasions, I can hear things, the slightest indifference to an engine sound. So yeah, for me, sounds wise, I can. Are you the same? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so question number 6 is I usually notice car number plates or similar strings of information. For this, I have also selected I definitely agree. I do. When I'm walking around, I will look at little logos, number plates sometimes, different strings of information. Just like it says, I will latch onto that nobody else will. And from people that I've spoken to who have a diagnosis of autism and who are on the spectrum, they say exactly the same thing, that they can walk down the road and they'll pick up a piece of information that maybe no one else would at that particular time. So yeah, so that's what it means for me. So that's what I'm selecting. Okay, so question number 7 is other people frequently tell me that what I've said is impolite, even though I think it is polite. Now, I'm kind of in the middle on this. I mean, not many people have said that to me, but I have had that conversation with people. So for this, I'm going to select slightly agree. I can say things, and in my head, it's meant in a very empathetic way, a very caring way, and it comes across not at times, not all the time, but quite often it can. So it's not something that's a major issue maybe, but it definitely is. So I have to take more precaution when I'm saying things to add facial expression, and this is where all this kind of masking comes in as well, to try and get around things. But it's just so exhausting having to mask all the time, and but you don't want to offend people. And I think the more people get to know you anyway and know about either your diagnosis or your neurological kind of way of thinking, then I think they'll start to understand more. And the more people have been aware of how I present and how I can come across, they do tend to have a bit more patience with me. So it swings and roundabouts. Okay, so question number 8 is, when I'm reading a story, I can easily imagine what the characters might look like. Well, yeah, I can. I think that's self-explanatory, and yeah, I'm going to put definitely agree for that one. Okay, we're going to go straight on to question number 9. I am fascinated by dates. Okay, I'm going to say I slightly disagree with this. I do like to know when things are, but I'm not fascinated by dates. I don't have to know the dates of historical events and be able to reel them off. Whether or not I can do that is a different question. But yeah, for me, I'm not fascinated by them. So for that one, I am going to select slightly disagree. Are you fascinated by dates? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so question number 10 is, in a social group, I can easily keep track of several different people's conversations. Now for this, I'm going to put slightly disagree, because I can't. I'm trying to focus on one conversation. I can't hear everybody else's. I can hear them all at once. That's not a problem. But if I don't focus in on a particular conversation that's important, then I will lose track completely. So yeah, that can have its downfalls as well. So for that one, I am going to pick slightly disagree. Okay, so question number 11. Again, quite straightforward, I think. I find social situations easy. I don't find them easy. I don't panic and have a big blow up, but I don't find them easy. So for that, I'm going to put definitely disagree. I do get a bit kind of slightly anxious in social situations. There's some that I don't, and there's a lot that I do, and I kind of have to mask a lot, which is quite draining. So yeah, so for me, I'm going to select definitely disagree. Okay, so question number 12 is, I tend to notice details that others do not. I think for me, this is slightly agree, because I do tend to notice a lot of details. There's a lot of details that I don't notice, and I get in trouble for that as well. But overall, because I think it's to do with this, the previous question as well, where you're noticing strings of information and number plates. So it's kind of related to that side by side, but maybe on a more personal level or a more confined level. So for me, yeah, I do notice information, not all the time, but quite often that others do not. Whether or not it's relevant is another thing, maybe. But yeah, during meetings at work, etc., then I will sometimes stand up or not stand up, but like say something that maybe other people have missed. And, you know, not all the times, but maybe 6, 7 times out of 10, I'll be correct. So yeah, so I've got a good kind of knack for that, I guess. Okay, so question number 13, unlucky for some, but not on this test, although it could be, is one of these questions, okay? So, I would rather go to a library than a party, okay? Now for this, I'm selecting slightly agree. This is one of those questions that, again, it's kind of going to be stereotypical, so you have to answer it based on that, really. So they're kind of saying that if you'd rather go to a library than click agree, that means that you're going to be potentially more autistic. You don't like social situations. And if you click disagree, it's going to insinuate that you prefer to go to parties than have quiet alone time as such. There's a lot of caveats to this, because in the real world, that, you know, it depends what's on, what the party is. It might be a family party, a little party. It might be a massive party with lots of people that you don't know, so it might make it a lot more anxious. And the library as well, it depends where the library is and you know, how many people are there, maybe, you know. So there's a lot of sway there either side. I do like to go to a party, but they are very few and far between. So I know, because I am more going away from the social side of thing in the sense of parties. So I'm going to answer the question based around that, as I think you should as well. So I'm going to answer it with slightly agree, because I know that if I answer disagree, just to be kind of make a statement or a point, that it's going to take a point away from me, because I know it's aiming at the library being a bit more autistic, even though it's not really, is it? Okay, so question number 14 is, I find making up stories easy. Yeah, I mean, I think I can. I've done it with my kids. I've made up stories about local supermarkets and things like that. So yeah, I can. If you gave me, I know this is like one of the diagnostic things as well for the diagnosis tests, where they can give you certain props maybe, and you go and make a story out of it. Yeah, I mean, if you gave me 3 items and says to make a story, I think I could. You know, I could definitely do that. So for that, I'm going to select slightly agree for that as well. Okay, so question number 15 is, I find myself drawn more strongly to people than to things. Again, this is another stereotypical question, in my opinion. I am drawn to people, but I'm also drawn to my own personal things and interests. If I prefer to do my own special interests, whether that may be, then I'm going to pull away from other people. However, I may want to include other people in those special interests to get them interested in it. And maybe, so I like to teach, I like to give information, be informative about a lot of things. That's part of me and who I am. Find myself drawn more strongly towards people than to things. Again, this is insinuating that if you agree with that statement, that you are less likely to have that side of an autistic trait. But if you disagree with it, you're saying that you're more drawn towards things. So for me, I am drawn more towards my special interests, I suppose, but I am also drawn towards people. But for that, I'm just going to put slightly disagree. Okay, so question 16 is, I tend to have very strong interests which I get upset about if I can't pursue. Now for this one, I'm going to select I slightly agree. I do have interests that I like to do. I am aware that other things come first in life, like paying bills, family, you know, your kids, etc. So I am happy to put them aside, but they're always in my head, you know? And if I can't pursue them at some point in the week and have a bit of me time, then I can get a little quite grumpy, and I suppose to some degree upset. So for that one, I'm going to select slightly agree. Okay, so question number 17 is, I enjoy social chit chat. Okay, so for this, I am going to put slightly disagree, purely because I do like to talk to people, definitely, but I do struggle to do the small talk, if that's what it's referring to. I can do the usual, nice weather we're having. Oh, how are you doing? And then it depends how well I know the person. If I know them quite well and we've got something in common, then I can talk quite well. If it's something that I'm not too sure about or don't know that well, or a stranger, then I do struggle after the first couple of kind of interactions, really. And I always dread it when I'm in the lift with somebody that I don't know, and I can tell they're going to talk. And it's not their fault, you know, they're being social and I'm not. So for that, I'm going to select slightly disagree. Okay, so question number 18 is, when I talk, it isn't always easy for others to get a word in edgewise. Okay, so if I'm talking about something that is one of my interests and I get quite passionate about it, then I know that I'm on a telephone call maybe, or speaking in person, and I know they've got to have their say as well and talk, but I suppose I can talk a little bit more than maybe I should and not give them as much of a chance, I suppose. They can get a word in edgewise. It's just, I suppose I take over the conversation in that moment, I suppose. So for this, I'm going to select slightly agree, because it does happen sometimes. I'm aware of that. Okay, so question number 19 is, I am fascinated by numbers. Okay, so for this, I'm going to select slightly disagree. I do like numbers, and especially I'm quite acute and kind of on it about finances, etc., and making notes as regards that. But I think a lot of people are like that anyway, aren't they? They'll probably do like an in and out section for their bills, etc. That doesn't make them autistic. I'm not fascinated by numbers. I don't get excited by numbers. So for this, I'm going to put slightly disagree. Okay, so number 20. We're going to make this the last question, and then we'll continue the next 30 questions in part 2. The question number 20 is, when I'm reading a story, I find it difficult to work out the characters' intentions. So for this, I'm going to select definitely disagree. I've read plenty of stories. I say plenty, I've read quite a lot of stories, you know, of fiction. I think I'm pretty good at telling what that particular character's intentions are. Maybe not always. So I think I'm going to change it to slightly disagree. I think I've got a very good idea about it, you know. I'm definitely got a good idea. I'm sure there'll be the way it's written as well. You know, you might get a character that's written really well and give you a bit of a surprise ending maybe. So maybe you can't work it out, and that's always a challenge, I suppose, for everybody. So for that, I'm going to put slightly disagree. Okay, guys, so that is the end of this particular episode. We've looked at the introduction and the creator of the AQ50 test, as well as the first 20 questions. So in part 2, we're going to take a look at the last 30 questions and also reveal my score. Okay, so if you have enjoyed this video, then please give it a big thumbs up, and any comments or questions regarding the AQ50 test, this channel, or even autism in general, or you just want to share your experiences, then put them in the comment section down below, and I will do my best to read and reply to as many as I possibly can. And if you are new to the channel, then please consider subscribing and be part of our community, our ever-growing community. And don't forget to press that notification bell as well to be alerted of up and coming videos. So until the next video, for the next 30 questions, part 2, remember, stay safe, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.
I'm a OD boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. OD boy.
Day we hustle, but the night we
OD boy. Know that they ride or die.